Welcome everyone to the Crypto Collaborative, formerly known as Crypto RIA. This is Tim Nihill, founder and CEO of the Crypto Collaborative, here with my boy Tyler, our Chief Compliance Officer and just an all-around good dude. Tyler, what are we going to talk about today?
Appreciate it, man. We're going to be talking today about probably one of the most critical and misunderstood components of crypto advising, custody and direct ownership. We're going to really break down sort of why custody decisions sit really at the intersection of fiduciary duty, compliance, client trust, operational risk, and really how RIAs can think clearly about owning, safeguarding, and advising on digital assets in a way that really aligns with regulatory expectations and long term client outcomes.
Oh, that's a lot.
It's a lot to unpack, but that's what we're here for, right?
Glad I'm not an advisor.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, for anyone out there that's new to us, we've been in the crypto game since 2017, 2018. And there are two components of why this is going to be important. Like today, we're going to debunk the myth that an ETF is going to be enough for an exposure for your clients in their investment portfolio. So as an advisor, yes, you could add the ETF. It can be an enhancer, but that's not the core of what digital assets are and why they're important. And I think if you really want to understand what's going on, pay attention to Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, and how he's talking about the tokenization of assets, right? And we're just in this world where you're either trying to build wealth on traditional fixed rail systems, or you're building sovereign wealth. And for anyone that's high net worth, ultra high net worth, et cetera, next generations, sovereign wealth is a really big deal.
mm-hmm.
And if you have people coming to you that want sovereign wealth, then you have to understand custody.
Yeah, I mean, custody decisions really often determine whether a crypto strategy is viable at all, for an RIA. Like, obviously, it's not sexy, but like, it's where firms win or lose trust.
Yeah, I mean, custody's a big deal. I We've gone through this in our own internal framework with our family office on custody of digital assets, and at the end of the day, it's all about trust, right? And so if you're someone that's big in digital assets and you have millions upon millions of dollars in Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever um, do you really trust your money at home on a single factor sign-in wallet or even a multi-sig wallet? What if you screw up your passkey?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're like, okay, well, what about the exchanges? You have Gemini, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, etc. Are you ever 100% sleeping at night? Maybe, maybe not. And then you have banks which are now going to custody crypto. But you look at someone's stance like JP Morgan Chase, would I ever put my Bitcoin at Chase Bank? There isn't a chance in hell.
Yeah, I mean, they literally talk all the time about how Bitcoin is this like flash in the pan that's gonna, it's totally not worth it. I mean, Jamie Dimon is one of the biggest anti-crypto skeptic voices. So yeah, go ahead, put Bitcoin in his bank, see what happens.
Right, and it gets back to ownership, right? So if you're buying exposure to crypto through a product like GBTC, like a Grayscale solution, Trust Solution, an ETF like IBIT, whatever, you do not have, similar to index funds and ETFs, you don't have ownership of the actual asset. And ownership of this asset is massively important because it's becoming the foundation for new treasuries being built and to be used as collateral. So if I can acquire, let's say Bitcoin's digital gold, and it's like owning digital property. So if I bought property in Manhattan in the 1600s, do you think I've ever sold it? No, but I continue to borrow against it. And when I borrow against it, guess what I don't do? I don't trigger capital gains, and I have tax-free income coming in.
So here's a question for you. Let's kind of get into the weeds of this a little bit. A lot of people may know what an ETF is. A lot of people may know how direct ownership works. But really, what's the difference between having Bitcoin through an ETF and directly owning Bitcoin, on chain assets.
Yeah, I mean, with an ETF, you don't own the asset, and I can't use it as collateral. It's that simple,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like if you rent a home versus you own a home, you can't, if you rent it, you don't have ownership, so you can't borrow against it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I own property, I borrow against my property to acquire other property, and I'm taking tax write-offs and borrowing against myself, so it's tax-free. And this is the concept of family banking too, and developing your own family bank. You know, it's a big deal. You have to, people that understand digital assets and the next generation of finance understand that the most crucial piece of investing and acquiring digital property and digital assets is the ownership of the asset, not your keys, not your coins. So,
I'm gonna put that as a title.
yeah, I mean, I've gone full cycle on this, um, because we can access it in any number of ways, but you have to own the asset. And the problem is there aren't a lot of people out there that are helping people solve the ownership issues, right? Like we help people all the time that have, been scammed out of their digital assets through, phishing emails, which happens all the time, all the way down to people locking themselves out of their cold storage wallets and how to reopen them and unlock them.
Yep.
So not only do you have to help people acquire the asset and own the asset, but then you have to help them custody the asset to the extent that they have a solution that they're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like in practice? Like when it comes to the process of getting an ETF versus the process of getting direct ownership of a digital asset? What does that look like in practice?
Well, in practice, first and foremost, is you're not an ETF. I could buy in a brokerage account IRA, off of any platform, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, whatever. I mean, that's easy. Ownership of the asset is you actually have to go to someone that can transact in Bitcoin and Ethereum and what else. So you're going to a Kraken, a Coinbase, a Binance, Gemini. In our experience, our favorite platform has always been Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
And we use a lot of different other platforms and wallets and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's different. And the problem is most advisors don't understand this world. And so what finance is trying to do is pull the digital assets back into the traditional finance system.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you hear Larry Fink, it's a good opportunity for us to get traditional retirement products, blah, 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 whatever. But I don't think what Larry Fink understands is digital assets are going to pull traditional finance to the digital world.
Yeah.
It's not vice versa. So then if you're going to be in the digital space, in the digital financial world, where all traditional financial systems, money, offerings, etc., are all now digital, well, that's great. So now you have your tokenized S&P 500 token because you no longer are buying a fund, and now it's, being bought and sold where?
Mm-hmm.
Well, right now, really, Robinhood's the head of the game there. And how many advisors know anything about custodying anything on Robinhood?
Mm-hmm.
So it's becoming a huge game changer. And yeah, like Schwab's and Pershings of the world will all catch up. But there are going to be a lot of new players in town. And there are definitely going to be old players, legacy platforms that are very, very big that will not exist in 5 years. They will be gone.
Mm-hmm. I know we've mentioned that on our other channel as well. We've mentioned a lot about how legacy platforms are going away, but I guess just on this subject, on the difference between, direct ownership and ETFs, just before we move on, I guess what would you say what would you say in terms of why this particular contrast matters for fiduciary responsibility?
For fiduciary responsibility?
Yeah.
Well, it's twofold. One is by owning the asset directly and not through a packaged product, it's a cleaner play. The other thing is portability, right? Like you could be sitting next to someone at Starbucks and they could have $1 billion in their pocket and you would never know. And and that's kind of like the gold versus Bitcoin argument, right? Because it's like, all right, let's say that I want to pick up and move because, there are political issues, sovereign issues, whatever. I just want to relocate. Well, it's very, very hard to take 5 million of gold and travel with it. Right? $5 million worth of gold.
Yeah.
But I could jump on any plane tomorrow and have $5 million worth of Bitcoin in my pocket. You would never know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one part of the fiduciary play. It's just a cleaner play. Ownership, Bitcoin treasury at the core of family treasuries and holdings is the new wave of finance and advisor work. And then I also think that the thing that you have to think about from a fiduciary perspective is the other side of it. All the advisors out there that still think that this is, kind of BS and don't understand it and haven't done their homework on it, it's going to be a big fiduciary problem for them because their clients are going to look at them and be like, this is the highest and best performing asset class over the last 10 years and continues to be and will be for the next 10 to 15, and you didn't put me in it.
I think you mentioned a story once. Obviously, I don't want to name names, but you mentioned a story once where you visited an advisor and you were just talking to him about the opportunity and the importance of digital assets in today's world, and he was just like, I have never heard of this.
Yeah.
Like,
blockchain is totally outside their nomenclature. Digital assets are completely different. They have to literally relearn and learn a completely new economy and a new way of doing things. And it doesn't fit the 48, 50-year-old CFP model that's been sold and proliferated across the country.
Yep.
Like, how do I show Bitcoin's growth in my e-money and my Money Guide Pro? You don't. You can't. The systems are too constrained and constricted. So you can't even properly forecast digital assets in a traditional financial planning world.
Yeah, and I think this is why it's also important. Going back to custody, this is why it's important for advisors, because advisors are not just responsible for what clients own, but how it's held, because that can translate and impact profit. That's why custody is such a core component, of prudent process.
You're the compliance guy. You would know.
Yeah, exactly. No, and speaking of compliance, I mean, that's also a part of it. Like, you have to take into account, SEC custody rule considerations, just how much guidance evolves in this regard, because, I mean, it's changing all the time. The SEC or FINRA will come out with some new rule. These days, it tends to be simplifications and updates because the government right now, at least in the U.S., is very pro-crypto. We're
going to get a lot of regulatory framework that is going to be in place in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The Clarity Act goes through.
We got
the market structure goes through. The Commodities Trade Commission,
Genius Act, all that stuff.
Genius Act. They just launched the CFTC just launched their own digital assets collateral program.
Mm-hmm.
So Bitcoin, Ethereum, U.S. Treasuries, U.S. dollars. So we're moving to a different world. I think we're copying really the Saudi Arabian model here.
Mm-hmm.
Like sovereign wealth down.
Well, it's all over the Middle East, really.
And the other thing, too, is this is the most important thing in regards to custody, if you will, and ownership of the asset versus ownership of an ETF. You have to look at what the United States government is doing. And I don't care if you're a blood or crip, red or blue. Like, you want gang warfare, have fun with it. I don't do that type of stuff.
I've never heard that analogy before. I love that. The Crips versus the Bloods.
Like I said, founding fathers established a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. The democracy is actually unconstitutional. Anyways, I digress. It's blood versus Crips, but it doesn't matter because when the United States government starts to take ownership in companies like Intuit, and we're now socializing the ownership of private investments in the United States,
you got the
sovereignty and ownership of this asset is massively important to the next generation.
you got the people who are all about small government reportedly, and they're like socializing these assets, and they're buying stock in major companies. It's like, this is not very small government of you, buddy.
No.
And everybody's wise to it, regardless of whether you have a D or an R next to your name. Everybody's realizing how stupid
What's
this
that old
is.
adage? Do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Right. So it's the most important thing as an advisor is you have to now study. And you're not going to learn this through the CFP board. You're not even going to learn it through, even like Rick Edelman has a training program out there, which is pretty good. But it doesn't get you into the crux of understanding how this impacts your business and then how to use it from a client perspective and why it's important from a planning perspective. Because you have to first study Bitcoin, then you have to understand blockchain and the tokenization of everything. So when you're sitting in your office, look around you, because your office is going to be listed on the blockchain. Your car is going to be listed on the blockchain. Your business loan is going to be listed on the blockchain. Your artificial intelligence and computers are going to be running your business for you. They are not going to use banks anymore. They are going to trade directly, peer-to-peer networks, open source, just like Bitcoin and Ethereum and the rest of them are, without any interference from intermediaries. And then on top of that, understand that you're now going to be having to be made available 24/7 because this stuff doesn't sleep. So it's single-handedly going to change the advisory community. It's going to shift all of the assets away from the older advisors, and on average I think financial advisors are about 67, 68 in age. It's going to transition the old generation out, and then digital assets, crypto, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and the people that adopt to this technology and integrate it and know how to communicate with it, and more importantly, help communicate to the clients on why it's important and how to do it safely and mitigate the risks of it, that's who wins in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter what you think about it. It really doesn't, because if you don't adopt, you're out.
Not only that, but I mean, clients are, especially these days, with all of this technology coming into play, clients are getting more aware as well. It's not just advisors. Clients, especially these days, are asking. They're not just asking anymore, is this a good investment? They're now also asking, is it safe, and who controls it?
Correct. And we are getting a lot of people that are referred to us from other advisors that we're working with in a number of different capacities that we're solving a lot of unique problems that even we didn't know about going in. But it's also helping advisors understand, like, this isn't just like an asset allocation, right? Like, hey, let me add 5% of my model to Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP ETFs.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to have an equity sleeve focused primarily on blockchain specific and artificial intelligence technology assets. Stocks, bonds, preferred income, all that stuff. And then you look at what MicroStrategy is doing, what Tom Lee at Fundstrat is doing with BitMine Immersion Technologies. They are changing business valuations and the business models of publicly traded companies. And crypto and digital assets are at the core. Artificial intelligence is at the core. So I take a company like MicroStrategy that's struggling to make ends meet. I change the model of the firm, become a Bitcoin product and treasury company on a publicly traded exchange, and then I cut my work staff by, 90%, and I go from barely making margins and a 10% year-over-year revenue profit margin, and I go down to 90% profit margin with 90% less staff, and I'm making like $1 billion a week.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamics of finance have changed tremendously. And this is where the combination of digital assets, digital exchanges, tokenization of assets, and the new business model are going to substantially change everything that you do from an advisory perspective, because you now have to change out of your old model.
Yeah, and I mean, so let's kind of get into the weeds as far as this goes as well, because obviously there's a lot of components of it when it comes to just the functioning of direct ownership. I mean, like let's talk about convenience products, for example, like why they exist. Kind of get us into that.
What do you mean by convenience products, like ETFs, mutual funds, etc.?
Yeah, like ostensibly they exist because there's a lower operational lift. Oh, it's familiar. Wrappers for traditional advisors, and sometimes initially it may be easier from a compliance standpoint, but there's a lot of trade-offs that I think advisors need to understand.
Right
Because
now, ownership, direct ownership of the asset,
yeah,
and custody of the asset do not fit traditional advisor models.
yeah, because
They can't do it.
we can talk all we want about how you know you with one option you own this and with the other option you don't own this, but it's like fundamentally when you get into the weeds of it, the trade-offs that I think advisors need to understand is with those convenience products there's a lack of on-chain ownership just fundamentally, and clients aren't going to like that when you because if a client comes to you and they ask you, you know who owns this, and if you tell them, well, you don't own this technically, but then there's immediately going to be that suspicion there, like, why don't I own this, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
But also,
What they and that will happen. That will happen with crypto and digital assets versus other investment products, specifically around the ability to use this asset as collateral.
yeah, so there's that limited portability, there's that limited optionality, but yeah, the big thing
Yeah,
is
there's none of it.
it just has this mismatch with crypto's long-term value proposition, because like you just don't need that anymore. All of these convenience products, they're just not needed anymore.
No, and I have people we're working on some projects with, and these are great examples of like the concept of retirement is going away. You have kids now, they're not kids, but I mean, you look at Jack Mullers, who's the head of Strike, dropped out of college, worked for his father, he's 31, all he knows is Bitcoin, and his stock got publicly listed as a publicly traded company.
We go by the Sopranos definition of a kid. 47, just a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not, like, Jack Mullers is a very, very, very intelligent being. But the point is, you can't go to Jack Mullers and sell him a financial plan. He's going to laugh at you. The next generation, they don't want index funds. They don't want ETFs.
Yeah.
They want ownership of assets and freedom and flexibility.
Just give me the thing. Why are there these layers? Just give me the thing.
They don't want to pay for something they don't see that has value.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's value is being brought into question, right? We're talking about the impact of AI. I saw some stuff this week. 80% of white-collar jobs are eliminated within 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this a while ago. Like, for my generation especially, we grew up during the financial crisis. We watched our parents lose their jobs, in many cases lose their homes. I mean, there's that security. We need that security. We need to understand, like, hey, we own this. And if we don't own this, then we're going to very rightfully ask the question, why?
Yeah, and when they start asking the question around ownership, that's where the financial advisory world gets exposed.
Yeah.
I would say they're at least another 18 to 24 months out from having to solve.
Clients fundamentally value sovereignty and transparency, and these convenience products don't have either.
And the people that have the wealth of the future want sovereign wealth. They don't want on-chain or exchange wealth. Like, they're not looking to park $1 billion in an account at Schwab.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not how it works anymore.
So before we move on, I want to touch on that. Just because obviously, we're talking to advisors very specifically here, on the Crypto Collaborative channel. I kind of want to get sort of an advisor-centric picture on this. we've talked to clients before, our own clients, about sovereign wealth and what that is as a concept. Walk us through, walk the audience through, walk our listeners through what sovereign wealth is and what it means from an advisor's perspective.
Yes, sovereign wealth creation is the next generation of wealth management in the United States. Sovereign wealth is complete freedom from systems, from governments, from oversight, from control, and it's with complete risk-free liability. Think of it as I basically own oil in the 1800s. That's what crypto is. This is the first oil trade of the new digital age.
Like you're a Texas oil baron and you
I'm a
own the well.
Texas-
You
I'm-
own the well.
Think of me like, oh man, remember that there was that show Dallas with J.R. Ewing.
It's a little bit too old.
Is that too old school?
A little bit too old for me.
You got to look up J.R. Ewing.
I mean, I know.
Oh yeah, man, what a great show!
Everybody's heard of the Who Shot JR, but that's about the extent of my knowledge on Dallas.
And you have to understand too, like in the financial planning world, the target market was always, we want to get higher net worth millionaires, multimillionaires as clients, right, and help build that.
Mm-hmm.
Next generation, man, you got to be able to manage billions. Sovereign wealth is about billionaires.
Yeah, there's a
And
show.
this is-
There's a show everybody should watch.
Billionaires today are the millionaires of the 80s. And digital assets creates that next generation of wealth. So if you want to have any existence in the financial advisory space, family office space, financial services, whatever, you have to be able to handle billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. So here's a question, kind of moving on into sort of the weeds of custody models themselves that RIAs may encounter. You have third party, for example, you have third party institutional custodians, where the benefits of those, you get the insurance, you get the reporting, you get the controls, but also there's the limitations of it where you have, asset availability limitations, limitations on speed, innovation, stuff like that. And then you have self-custody, where it's either client-led or advisor-guided. I'm kind of wondering, walk us through sort of the difference between third-party institutional custodians and self-custody and sort of I mentioned some of the limitations and benefits of third-party, but, kind of walk us through the contrast between those two models and what sort of the limitations and benefits of self-custody are.
Yeah, I would think of it this way, is like you have custody on the exchanges. I think of like physical silver and gold, right? So I can find an exchange that can hold my silver and gold for me in a vault, and they give me an account statement based on how much I own, how much my value is. The self-storage is the same as, well, let's say I just buy a bunch of guns and have a safe in my house and put it in my own safe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's self-storage. So same concept, except, instead of holding bars and coins of silver, gold, etc., I just have a cold storage wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like a extra hard drive you back your computer up on. So there are limitations there too. Like, okay, what happens if something happens in my house and someone gets into my safe, or my house burns down? There's that side of the equation that you have to think about. And that's why even we're working on some things where there's another way that kind of bridges the two together.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have a lot of people we know that they do have cold storage wallets, but they don't feel comfortable with that in their house.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes down to trust. There's going to be a big play out in this world built around trust and custody. And exchanges will be involved, advisory firms will be involved, banks will be involved, and, everybody will have what works for them.
So that leads me to another question. I'm kind of wondering, what's your opinion on hybrid models? Because a lot of firms are really trying to structure their policies around hybrid models, really trying to blend institutional custody with client sovereignty. What are your thoughts on those? Would you, I don't want to say would you recommend those, a little too promissory, but I guess like, do you see them a lot in the people that you work with? What are
The
your thoughts
hybrid
on?
approaches.
Yeah, more hybrid models where you're including a little bit of both.
Yeah, I see both. I mean, we definitely have a hybrid approach to us. So I think the hybrid is kind of the wave of the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's a comfort level,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot that needs to be developed there. So like today, as an advisor, you can go out there and just right now your solution is, can I talk about an ETF? Can I put it in the asset allocation? And then when it comes down to it, you're telling your client, well, if you actually want ownership, go do it on your own. That's a big part that has to change. And then even for some that can go out and buy it on the exchanges, you know, are let's say you have $1 billion under management and you have 100 million that you want to put into digital assets. Do you feel comfortable with $100 million on Coinbase?
Mm-hmm.
So
Also, if I'm a client and my advisor's telling me, yeah, if you want direct ownership, you have to go do it on your own. If I'm a client, I'm like, what am I paying you for?
yeah, definitely.
Like, go do it on your own? Like, okay, so basically I'm paying you to do this job for me and you're just saying, no, I'm not going to do it.
Right. Well,
Yeah, no, you are. Learn.
well, yeah. Again, but that's not how the industry is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have a new wave of financial advisors that come into this space that understand digital assets and custody.
And they're going to be willing to do it.
Yeah, and don't forget too, this is still early, right? Because it's not like if you're an advisory firm, you can just go out and hire someone to do this.
Yeah.
That understands compliance to ownership to just the different protocols and what to buy, what not to buy, and then how to integrate it, how to implement it, how to feed it in your technology systems, and then on top of that, how to trade it, and nobody knows how to do this, which is hilarious. It's not like you can go out and get Crypto Bro to come in because they don't know anything about advisory work. I mean, their YouTube channels are great, but they're not actually sitting with people every day helping them integrate this new technology.
Yeah, they're too busy hacking YouTube channels.
Yeah, and asset ownership into the advisory model. So
guys, look, my profile picture has a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT on it. I know everything.
Right, and that's why I said there's really no one like us at the Crypto Collaborative out there because we know every single little piece about this and how to fit it into an advisory firm. And in order to get there as an advisor, I mean, look, we've been doing this since 2017, 2018, so 7, 8, 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And even we're kind of learning some stuff as we go along because it's always changing so fast.
I think that's what a lot of people have a misconception about because they think, oh, the crypto itself, obviously it's getting major institutional acceptance now. Now you're starting to buy parts of Bitcoin instead of just full Bitcoin. We are getting to that point. We are at that point. Like I remember because we're recording this a couple weeks ago was John Cena's last match. So I've been thinking about John Cena. Like I was thinking about him like all week going beforehand, and it still hurts even some time on it still hurts. But like I was thinking about him. I was seeing this like fan panel that he was doing while I was at the gym one day, and a fan asked him, what would you tell yourself? Like, when you first debuted in 2020 in 2002? What would you tell yourself if you could go back? And his immediate answer was, go all in on Bitcoin.
Right. Buy Bitcoin as much as you can.
Go
at
all
12
in.
Cents. You don't understand it. It's a big deal.
Just go all in on Bitcoin.
Right. And now everybody has to go all in on Bitcoin. And
but that's what I was saying is like...
No, but here's the other difference, and this is why it's important for advisors
Mm-hmm.
to understand ownership. Because you're going to have tracking error
Mm-hmm.
in ETF exposures. It's not going to track the performance of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Ownership is a fundamental part of the process because as an advisor, you are now you're now benchmarked relative to Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting benchmarked to the S&P 500 or some splendid benchmark anymore, because I can say, oh yeah, the S&P over the last 5 years has gone up 90%. Well, relative to Bitcoin, the S&P has lost 90% in that same time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So every advisor now is being benchmarked to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is coming for everything.
Yeah, but also like the point I was gonna make
Like
was
John Cena said, go all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah. No, but the point I was going to make on that was people always say, oh, I mean, I wish I bought Bitcoin, it's so and so year, when this was like really new and stuff like that. I think a lot of people think that just because we're now starting to see that major acceptance, that now, that brand new period, that's back in like 2012, 2014. It's like now Bitcoin is more widely known and starting to be more widely used. I think may feel advisors may feel like, oh, I'm too late for this, or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But
But
I think the point we're making today is no, actually, the advisory world is just starting to make this transition. It's now bleeding into the advisory world now.
Right. And think about ownership is the monopoly board, right? So all we've been helping people do for 5 to 7 years is buy up all the properties on monopoly. And now all the advisors with their ETFs are going to come in and allocate at least 5 to 30% to crypto and digital assets and blockchain exposure. And we already own the monopoly board.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. So, ownership means you own the monopoly board. ETF means you're paying for everybody that owns the asset. And as an advisor, that could potentially make or break you. But Bitcoin is now the game. That's the benchmark for everything. It's digital gold. Even Fidelity came out and said 1 Bitcoin relative to a US dollar by the time we hit 2040, 1 Bitcoin will be worth $1 billion.
Mm.
So if you want to use the baseball analogy, you're in the bottom of the first inning of a 9-inning baseball game. So you're still early. Like, yeah, did you miss the first wave, like buying Apple stock back in 1984? Like, say you missed the Apple run up from 1984 to 84 to 1990. I think that if you got into Apple in 1990, you're still doing pretty good.
You're still doing well.
You're still happy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I guess, a degree of happiness.
Like if you got into like Nvidia in like 2023, it's like you're still doing well. Like, did you buy Nvidia when it was created? No, but like 2 years ago, like if you're buying Nvidia then, you're still doing great now.
Right. And when you understand, and it's a frame of mind, like you have to get out of the world of pricing your world according to US dollar. Because in the technological age and the digital age, the dollar doesn't exist anymore. So everything in this world will be priced relative to Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and XRP. So it only matters how much you own. Mm-hmm. And that's why just keep buying it. Acquisition. It's like, hey, we just discovered the new world in New York City. We're going to develop markets here. Let's just keep buying up as much land as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And at the core, build that with ownership, direct ownership. Build that core and custody solution for your clients.
Yep. It shapes, a positive client experience. It shapes portfolio flexibility, future optionality, staking, lending, on-chain activity. It shapes all of that stuff. And advisors fundamentally who understand custody now will be better positioned as infrastructure evolves.
Yeah, or at least have a solution or an outsource.
Yeah, it's not a back office detail. It's a frontline decision.
I have plenty of friends that are advisors. They know nothing about this. They understand they're never going to. Tim, here are my best 10 clients. Can you take care of them? Yep, done. It's that simple. But yourself 10 years from now will thank you for making that decision. Because that's how... this is just... It's huge. Yeah. It's one of the biggest things we're ever going to see.
And firms don't need all the answers today, but they need a philosophy, they need a documented process, and they need trusted partners. That's what is needed today, at minimum.
Yeah, and trust is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have this problem. We had it as advisors until we started to build and partner with the right people and organizations. Like this is such a big deal that securing it properly is the most important thing.
Yeah, and that's why now we're with the Crypto Collaborative working with other firms. We're
Right.
providing, what we could have used back in the day.
Well, it didn't exist then either.
Mm-hmm.
So the market will continue to evolve. You will get more of the traditional financial institutions coming into the space. The issue with those traditional financial institutions are, the next generations want nothing to do with them, and that's why I keep saying there are going to be large organizations that we've seen even in the, Magnificent Seven. It wouldn't shock me if 3 or 4 of the Mag Seven were not in existence in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. But we'll see.
We shall see.
Mm-hmm. So, any final words on that topic?
No, I would just say, just have questions, want to have a conversation, reach out to us, give us a shout. We're happy to go through and share our experiences and how we got to where we are today. And we're just expanding on the Crypto Collaborative and developing a whole community of advisors getting into the space and giving them the resources to help them get them in and adapt early.
Mm-hmm. So definitely stay tuned. We're going to be talking about a lot of these adjacent topics in future episodes. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Obviously, we'll be talking, like I said, about a lot of these adjacent topics. Really shedding light on a lot of stuff that advisors need to know when getting into this space. So, yep. I'm Tyler.
Yeah, I'm Tim.
Hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching.